Come on. Come on. There, we've got a clock. It is counting. All right. And I need to go here and turn that off. And I need to click on this. And got some other stuff to click on there. All right. And I think that it is time. All right. Good morning to those of you who are in an area where it is morning. Good afternoon and good evening to those of you who are in those areas as well. Hope everyone's doing well today. It is cloudy today, but it's supposed to be a touch warmer. So yesterday was not bad. It was low 50s, I guess. Today it might be high 50s, but it might rain. So we've got a lot of people here, which is great. Good to see. Let's see here. We've got Zen for One is hoping for some rain in Florida. We've got Washington, D.C. We've got Leopoldsburg, Belgium. We've got Johnson City, Tennessee, Portugal, Belgium, Grenoble in southern France, Northern Virginia, sunny Finland. That feeling when you've forgotten that you have a tab open and suddenly Uncle Adam is talking on your computer. That happens to everybody. It's pretty much standard. Miami, Florida, Cleveland, Edmonton, sunny Denmark, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Hudson, Illinois. Really looking forward to the show. Let's see here. Denmark again, Switzerland, Germany, painting some gray nights. Joliet, Iowa, Australia, Iowa again, France, boy. Hello from Germany, Tucson, Ontario. Those are two different places. Tacoma, Washington. Basement Bunker in Ohio. Bangor, Maine. What else have we got? Toronto, Bulgaria, Arkansas, Los Angeles. Germany, Melbourne. I'm goofing that up, sorry. Even your live stream has amazing video quality. Well, I use a fancy camera for it, so I thank you, though. I appreciate it. Like right now, it's real hard to get a webcam, I've been reading, so I'm glad that I'm not using one or don't need to get one right now, thankfully. Hey from London, would love to hear your thoughts on Necromunda. Almost rhyme. Did I make that rhyme? I don't think I made that rhyme. I have an itchy shoulder for some reason, sorry. Necromunda, I love the models. I own nearly all of them, I think. As they keep coming out with new sets, I end up buying them and using them for other games other than Necromunda. I got a friend who's starting to get into it, surprisingly to me. All of a sudden, he started buying, like, the books. And so, I don't know. I may start playing it with him, potentially, but maybe not. We'll see. But he has been painting, so that's good. Michigan. Let's see here. Northern Ireland. Belgium. Ottawa. Hey, Uncle Adam. Finally got to watch a live show. Painting Necromunda Pit Fighter for a little isolation competition. Cheers from Poland. Well, cheers to you as well. We've got another one from Poland. We've got Ireland again. Maple Grove, Minnesota. Another one from Poland. You three should hang out together. Well, I mean, not right now, but you know what I mean. Waterford, Ireland. I was watching a movie last night. We watched that new animated thing on Disney Plus, Onward. It's from Pixar. It's kind of got like a D&D vibe to it, sort of a little bit, but different. Anyway, like this whole thing is affecting me in a way which is interesting because I will see like someone shake somebody else's hand in like a movie or TV, and I'm like, oh, don't do that, you know? Or I see a group of people standing around near each other, and I'm like, oh, that's not a good idea. And you know, it's an animated movie, for God's sakes. I don't think that they can get a virus, but maybe a computer virus, I guess. Greetings from the Nerd Bunker in Nova, painting Blitzbowl elves and Legion droids today. Nice. Emma says, hello from Denmark, working on my Sisters of Battle. Lovely models, but almost too many details. Yeah, sometimes that you can have too many details. It's worse to have too few, in my opinion, though. Butler, Pennsylvania, working on basing my AdMac army, also expanding my hobby by magnetizing my knight when they arrive. Nice. Aaron says, hi, Adam. Hello from Dallas, Texas. I'm almost done with the Zinch models I have for my first Age of Sigmar army. Luckily, I have 3 heroes and a burning chariot coming on Tuesday to refill my work pile. That's also a good thing. Let me see here. Howdy from my garage in South Ontario. We've got Scotland. Anybody have a good way of getting your hands on some primer? I'm all out. Shops are closed. Belgium doesn't have Amazon. Number one, I didn't know that Belgium doesn't have Amazon. That's interesting, but I guess it makes sense to some degree. Not everybody has Amazon, I guess. I would maybe via Facebook or something like that reach out to your local shop and see if they do any kind of mail order or curbside pickup or something like that, if possible. A lot of these shops are definitely interested in trying to still make some money, so you know, if you can do that, it's not a bad plan. It's just a good idea to support local too if you can. So definitely. Chris says that Onward is getting a miniatures/RPG game. When I was at the Gamma trade show thing in Reno just before all this went down, I saw the game that they play in that movie Onward. I forget what it's called, like Tales of Yore or something like that. And but yeah, it's I didn't notice that it was a miniatures game, but it did seem like it was an RPG. But it's kind of interesting, yeah. My gaming group are trying to use Tabletop Simulator, but it's such a pain. Have you tried it? I have not, although I do hear from some of the irregulars, the people on Patreon. I've heard that it is on sale currently, which is probably a smart time, honestly, for them to put it on sale. So it's half off, so I think it's $10. It's a little squirrely, from what I understand from some people. It's not super easy plug and play, you know, but it is. It's one of those things where I think that once you get the hang of it, kind of like Battlescribe. If you ever use Battlescribe like on your phone, it is real, in my opinion, hard to figure out at first. But once you kind of get the hang of it, you get the hang of it. But yeah. Excuse me. I got something as usual during the morning. My throat is kind of closed up or something. So I'm gonna hang on a second here. I'm gonna turn off the mic. There you go. Hopefully that'll help. And a little bit of coffee. Let's see. Painting a bunch of Death Guard. Bad timing for a current state point of view. Well, that's true. Got more done in the last 2 months than half a year before that. Soon 1,500 points and next to 2,000 points. Well, I mean, you know, some good can come out of it. That's the idea. Zachary says it's nice to be here live. It's nice to have you. Painting a weird chicken lizard from Reaper Miniatures. When you say weird chicken lizard, the first thing I think of is Reaper Miniatures. That does something because they have so many models in the line, because they've been doing it for so long. I'm like, well, I need a weird chicken lizard. I'd be like, have you tried Reaper? I need a shark with arms that punches people. Have you tried Reaper? I say that because I have that model from Reaper. So I do know that that's one of those things. Michael Huff says, I made the mistake of using black primer on a vehicle. It looks nasty after paint. I mean, it depends on the paint sometimes. If you're trying to paint like a light color on the vehicle and you prime it black, then yeah, that I could see that being problematic. If you're trying to, sometimes just more coats can help. It depends if you're trying to make the vehicle look like new and shiny, or are you trying to make the vehicle look like beat up, like a piece of terrain almost. Then it depends. Yeah. Emily says, hey Emily, Tabletop Simulator is basically a physics engine. Yeah, it's not a game per se. It is just literally like, hey, this is where you can put a bunch of stuff, but you still generally, I think that there are some like plugins or add-ons that allow you to actually have some sort of limited rules kind of designed in there, but I'm not 100% sure on that. For the most part, it's just a place. It is literally a tabletop simulator. It is what it says on the tin. Like, this is the tabletop simulated. So you still need to know your own rules and do all your own stuff. But there's lots of plugins and lots of, all that kind of stuff. From what I watched a video recently about it. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, Steam. Steam is the way to go on it because it is easier than to upload or to like install. I don't know, mods, I guess, for lack of a better term. So if you can get access to Steam, A, it's on sale right now, and B, then it's easier for you to install all kinds of mods so that if you're like, oh, I want to play Kill Team, let's say, you could probably find a lot of the models that you need. There's other games out there too. I know that there are like official mods too for that game, so you could play Scythe or other board games like Wingspan and stuff like that. Animus Oculus says, hi, here making up solo rules to play 40k as an XCOM game. That sounds like fun. That sounds like a cool idea. Let's see here. Jay Tick says, let's do this, baby. Ready to get some commission work done within the shelter of a Milwaukee house. How you doing, Jay? Good to see you. Hey, it's Cream City Miniatures. How you doing? Hope you guys are doing well down there also in Milwaukee. Let's see here. Done painting core of my Necron Kill Team now. Preparing to paint terrain from Kill Team Starter. Recently assembled and primed. I've got some of the, not the stuff that came in the original box because I've painted all of that, but I've got, you can still buy those same, in kits, that same stuff. I have some of that stuff downstairs primed, and I didn't bring it up to show you guys because it's just black, it's Kill Team stuff that's primed black. But I'm going to be using the Army Painter makes a new fluid, for lack of a better term, and it is basically an airbrush thinner kind of, and it is designed to use with their paints. I think you use, I don't know if it's 1 drop of the thinner to 2 drops of their paint, or 2 drops of the thinner to 1 drop of their paint. I forget exactly how it works. It's on the bottle though, so I just can't off the top of my head remember. But I want to test it and see how it works with other paints as well. But they've gone through a lot evidently to formulate this stuff so that you can use it to basically, because they don't have an airbrush line like the Tabletop Minions, the Army Painter TAP as opposed to TM. The Army Painter doesn't have an airbrush line, so they wanted to make this stuff so that you could take their normal paints and turn them into airbrush paints, which people will tell you, oh, you can use Windex and things like that, and that's fine if you want to do it that way. I prefer to use, I just don't like the concept of using Windex in my airbrush. I don't know why. Partially, it's also generally blue, so you can get clear Windex, I guess. Anyway, my point is I'm going to be using that on that terrain like as a test to see how it works out. So that'll be happening soon. Let's see. Anyone know where to get a decent deal on getting pink foam delivered? I am making the terrain for Dragonfall, and Home Depot wants $75 for it delivered, and Amazon is $20 for a tiny piece. Yeah, that's going to be a tough one right now. Although, at least around here, I think that hardware stores are still open because they're essential. I went grocery shopping yesterday, and I don't know. It makes me nervous. So I wore I wore a bandana wrapped around my head like I was some sort of Old West cowboy. You know what I mean? Like a bandit. I don't know. I feel weird about doing it, but I don't want someone to sneeze on my face or something like that. Hey! Kitties! Got a sister fight going on over there. Anyway, so and I wore gloves, but not like rubber gloves. Like I wore winter gloves, which it probably isn't helping, but it's maybe helping a touch. Anyway, so yeah, if you were going to go to the hardware store, if they're still open, that might be the best. But otherwise, yeah, getting big sheets of that pink foam that you put on the outside of your house delivered, not particularly easy. I understand how that works. Let's see. Trying to play some Gaslands. Was playing every Friday night, but with all things going on, it's a little hard. Thought about Skype games. I know that some of the irregulars on Patreon were playing Gaslands on Tabletop Simulator. So I know that it's, or I at least assume it's possible. I believe Emily, who's in here, she was mentioning that they were doing that, and so I think she was in on that. So yeah, that's an... it was the Noob Painter, N-O-O-B, who was running it, and I think he was also Twitch streaming it. And I missed it, but I was going to watch it later, and then I couldn't watch it later because Here's the thing about Twitch. So I streamed on Twitch on Friday, just like at lunchtime. I had been painting in the morning, and I gave myself an eye strain headache, and so I was like, I'm going to go eat lunch and then play video games. So I came upstairs, made some sandwiches, and then I was playing GTA 5, and I thought, well, heck, I'll just stream and see what happens. And it was fun. I was just going around, driving cars, stealing buses and stuff, as one does. The thing about Twitch is, which I did not realize, is that you have to go into your settings, and there's a little switch, a Twitch switch, anyway, that makes it so that if people want to watch your videos later, they can. Like, not forever. They can only watch it for like a week or something like that. But that switch is not turned on by default. Now I've turned it on. So if you wanted to, if I stream again, which who knows as far as that's concerned, I called it Uncle Adam's Paint Break. Anyway, if I do it again, hopefully if you miss it, then you can watch it later. And then maybe I'll be able to watch it later to see if it looks okay, sounds okay, is okay in any way. Anyway, that's where that's at. Zachary says, Uncle Adam Bandito confirmed. Yes, I was a bit of a bandito. I mean, I paid for all the food and stuff like that, but... Clinton M says, gloves will just keep spreading the disease. Better to use hand sanitizer frequently. My thought was that I could pick stuff up at the grocery store and then leave the gloves in my car and then not bring them into the house. But yes. But I'm still generally assuming that nearly everything I do is wrong. I think I've touched my face earlier here on stream. I'm trying not to, but I have a Kleenex now, which, hopefully we'll see if that works. VJ Morph says that playing is a pretty generous description of what we were doing. So evidently the tabletop simulator for Gaslands was a sort of a success, let's say. Let's say it was a success. It was fun, though, says Emily. So that's really all that's important. Scott says, good morning, just chilling and painting up some Gaslands terrain. Definitely excellent practice in weathering and rust effects. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tim Elbers says, greetings. Hey, Tim, how you doing? Jay Tick says, I feel your apprehension on going out. Yesterday I went out to Walmart, a line around the corner. I stopped, I looked, and I walked back to my car. Yeah, no, I can understand that. There was no line at the grocery store, really, like to get in or anything like that, which was nice. And it wasn't, like, crazy full or anything like that. Basically everything, well, not everything. Most everything was in stock except toilet paper still. So, yes. Animus Oculus says, Uncle Adam, have you watched the Astartes short videos? I have. I know that a new one, episode 5, question mark, I think it is. I think it's 5. A new one just dropped recently. And, I mean, they're cool. They're really interesting. I kind of wish I knew what was going on sometimes. Like, they're very stylized. Like, they look really cool. The visuals are cool. Like, the action is neat, but I'm, like, watching them going, I don't know exactly what's going on here. But it's still, it's pretty cool. It's interesting, too, that this most recent one is, like, the same length as the previous 4 all combined. Like, each of them in the past has been, like, a minute and a half or something like that. And then this most recent one was, like, 5.5 minutes. I was watching it, and I was thinking to myself, why is this still going on? This is long. And that was because that's just because the new one was this long. So that's cool. Melanie Dawn says, I think I painted myself into a corner. I hope not actually into a corner. That would be. I'm starting a bunch of Rune Wars minis, and they are really dark by choice, but I am worried that highlighting it will make it too bright. When I've got something real dark to highlight it with, I highlight it with something not quite as dark, but not crazy light. Like when I do my Death Watch, let's say, that's predominantly black armor, and then instead of using like white to do the highlighting, and I never edge highlight because I am lousy at it, and unless Sam does it, it just looks bad in most situations. Like even like super good pros, for the most part, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. But when Sam does it, who is also a super good pro, it seems to work because he's a wizard. Anyway, but what I use then to highlight is I use a makeup brush, like one of those big, huge ones, the cheap ones from the dollar store or whatever. And I use a dark gray, and it works out relatively well. That's my best suggestion, sadly. So there you go. Sorry. Let's see here. Andrew says, "Hello everyone, from a fellow painter from Italy. I think that the hobby is what is keeping me sane at the moment. Take care, everyone, and stay at home." Absolutely. Wait, hang on. I got a button. Bang. There we go. I've mentioned this in the past. I'll mention it again. Shelter and Hobby, hashtag Shelter and Hobby, is a hashtag that for Instagram, as it says right there on the screen. The name was told to me or suggested by actually Emily here in the chat, and it is basically the idea is that while we're kind of stuck here inside, which we should be because it's helping to flatten the curve, post things that you're working on. Become a content creator. I mean, it's good up there. It's good to start with Instagram because it's not particularly hard. All you really need is one of these. You need a phone, and you don't have to worry about microphones and lighting and all kinds of junk like that. You can shoot pictures of the stuff that you're working on while you're kind of stuck at home and share it. Share it with the Shelter and Hobby hashtag, and then people just start going through the Shelter. Like I've found recently, when I'm thinking to myself, I pick up my phone reflexively and I'm like, hey, you know what I should do is I should look at Facebook. I go, no, I don't want to look at Facebook. No, Facebook and no thank you. And instead what I do is I go on Instagram and I look through the Shelter and Hobby hashtag because I would much rather look at miniatures right now than everything else. Yeah, it's been working out pretty well. Last I looked, there were like over a couple thousand posts already, so that's really cool. Go through, look at other people's work, give them some likes, tell them in the comments that you like what you see. Hey, this is really cool. If you see something that you're interested in and you want to know more about it, ask them how they did it. Start a conversation. Like that kind of thing is going to help us stay sane, as some people have already mentioned already in the chat, while this is going on. So Shelter and Hobby on Instagram. And if you don't have an Instagram account yet, you should start one. And then even if you like, I have two Instagram accounts. I have one that's just like for it's mainly pictures of cats if I'm honest. But then the other one is mainly pictures of miniatures. So it used to really be hard to switch between accounts in Instagram, and then I don't know, a couple of years ago they fixed that, so it's way easier to switch between accounts now in the app. So yeah, definitely. Shelter and Hobby, hashtag Shelter and Hobby on Instagram. You should totally do it and share a bunch of cool stuff. I understand Instagram is also owned by Facebook. I'm not, but it's I don't know. I never see racist like relatives in Instagram. So there's that. That helps a bunch. There we go. Let's see here. Snowfight says Emily is the best. She is pretty darn good. Yes. Slededan. Putting a dark wash over the top of your highlights usually gives a nice effect. GW Agrex Earthshade is pure sorcery for this. That's also a good point for Melanie, is that if you do a highlight, like let's say you paint something dark, real dark, maybe black, real super dark brown, and then you put a highlight on it, maybe the highlight's too much, if you then throw a wash over it, it will help to tone that back down again. So if you can do that, that's pretty good. Excuse me. Patrick says, working on my Star Wars Legion units, some scouts and 21 stormtroopers. Yeah, I did, let's see, I've got 27 times 4. I've got 28 stormtroopers done. I've got a unit of 6 or 7 scouts, however many scouts are in a unit. I've got those guys done. Snow troopers, which I'm calling hazardous environment troopers because I'm doing everything desert themed, and I would think that snow troopers would look real weird out in the desert and probably be real hot. What else have I got? I've got an 800-point list of Empire done for Legion. I've got General Veers. I've got Director Krennic. I got one of those weird medical droids that's got all the arms on it. This is... And what else? I think that's about it. But then I'm going to add a bunch of different other stuff to it and then eventually start working on Rebels. But I've been doing other things as well. Paul Noxie says you can also set Instagram to follow that hashtag. That's also true. I've been doing that as well, so it just shows up in your normal feed as you're looking at your other friends and whatnot. I was just talking about other models and stuff that I'm working on. I'm working on a second warband for Star Breach. Star Breach is a game that you can download for free, but there was also a Kickstarter back at the end of 2019, and so I got a hardcover, but now you can get a soft cover I don't think the hardcovers are being made currently, but the soft covers I think you can still buy, potentially direct from them. But there's also a free PDF. There's also a, I think, $10 PDF, which is like kind of a fancier version. It's got all the art and like the cool stuff and things like that in it, whereas the free one doesn't have as much of the artwork and stuff, but still has the same rules. But you can basically take it for a test drive and see what you think. It's a cool game. I like it a lot. It's a sci-fi skirmishy kind of a thing with a great kind of activation scheme. You activate your units much like you do in bolt action, where you reach into a dice bag and you pull out a die. And so let's say, like, I have the blue dice and you have the red dice, and then you reach into the bag and pull out a red die. Okay, well then you activate a guy, and then we pull out another red guy. Okay, you, and then I reach in. Oh, I got a blue one. So you're, it's not alternating back and forth. It's kind of even more random, but yeah, it's very cool. Anyway. So I showed, if you've been following me on Instagram, you've seen some pictures and some video actually recently of my first warband that I did for Star Breach. It's mostly Necromunda models that I've modified and put different heads on and stuff. Today, after the show gets done, I'm going to be doing the enamel wash on the second warband because they're all ready to go, and it's now time for them to have their enamel wash and all that stuff. So I'll be doing that. But then I'm also starting to build some models for another game, which they will all be able to do double duty if necessary. And it is a game called Planet 28, which had a Kickstarter recently. It is a 16-page rule book, and at least 2 pages, like one is cover and the other one is like title page. So it's really more like 14 pages. But it's a really cool kind of, what do you call it? It's like a really cool kind of, like kind of retro sort of style. Again, skirmishy kind of narrative game. And you can get it at... Wargame Downloads? Wargame Vault? I'm going to look this up real quick. It's a really cool game, though. I really enjoy it. And I think while we're sort of all stuck... Wargame Vault? Question mark? Oh. Yeah, that's it. While we're all stuck, it's not a bad idea to look into some new, very inexpensive games. Let me do this, and then do this button, and do this. So, yeah, Planet 28, it is a, currently it's a pay what you want. And so what happens is that you can pay, I don't know, you pay $1, or you could pay $5 or whatever. I'm getting an actual printed copy because I was in on the Kickstarter, and I think that was $10, but I also have the PDF. But it's a very cool, very kind of old retro sort of game. Let me do this and that. So you can kind of see here, like, some of the cool retro art. Like, there's your cover, and then, like, there's a gun, and, like, cool guy shooting a alien or whatever. And it just reminds me of, like, old school... some old school D&D illustrations and things like that, and I really dig what they're doing with it. So I'm also building some stuff for that, and I'm trying to get all my screens back together. I apologize here. There we go. So yeah, it's a it's something that I like. I really have been getting into lately, building models for kind of indie games, and where you get to make your own kind of weird stuff. Another thing I'm going to be working on very soon is these Sandor Radhounds. This is from Victoria Miniatures. I picked these up at the Las Vegas Open. Sadly, no, not counting the trade show, the Gamma trade show. This is sadly the last convention I've been at, which was in late January. But yeah, this is very cool. These are resin models, but they're just I can see myself using these kind of crazy looking models for a lot of different stuff, or just using a lot of the parts. Like, I might not use the head on this one. I might use the head on something else and put a different head onto these guys, and just that kind of kit bashing stuff has really been something I've been enjoying lately. Vose Noctum says, not sure if it's been mentioned, but Frostgrave and a supplement are free on Osprey's site. PDF, of course. Yeah, there's another thing. If you've been thinking about getting into thinking about getting into Frostgrave for a while, now is the time, because they're releasing it as a free PDF that you can get during this whole crisis thing. So that's very cool. A couple of people have mentioned that here. Let's see here. Greg Lewis says, anyone know what the Dyson Sphere game is he's talked about? That one's called Zone Raiders. I don't know if that's available as a PDF anywhere. I mean, it must be someplace. I mean, they maybe sell it direct, or maybe it's someplace else. But yeah, Zone Raiders is the other one. That one, I have not built any models for it because, and I'll tell you why. The reason I haven't built any models for Zone Raiders yet is because the models or the factions are so, like, kind of out there, because everything is so post-human that everything would have to be, in my opinion, a lot more sci-fi than I have models for. And so I'm still trying to figure out the proper sourcing on what I want to do with that. I'm thinking that potentially maybe some Infinity models might be good for Zone Raiders. But like the stuff that I've been building has been a little bit more kind of Necromunda, grungy, sort of Inquisition 28 style, Blanchitsu sort of stuff. And so that's a perfect fit for Planet 28 and for Star Breach and those types of games. Planet 28 is very stripped down. There's no faction information. There's no story. There's no fluff. There's not even like different types of models. Like you don't say, okay, well, this guy's a gunner and this guy's a medic and this guy's a whatever. It's just very completely stripped down, but it's designed to give you a framework for narrative. Whereas Star Breach has a little bit of story, tiny little bit, but it has a lot more like factions. And the benefit of Star Breach's factions is that as you read them, you're like, oh, these are Chaos, and these are Imperial Guard, and these are Sith, and these are Jedi, and these are space pirates, and these are whatever. So it's you can use a lot of different models, but you can also customize stuff or whatever. So that's kind of fun too. Let's see here. Simon Key says, looks like Laser Burn, the 40K before 40K. Yeah, that's very true. Like the artwork reminds me quite a bit about that. VJ Morph says, Mantic are giving away the Warpath rules. Bring on my Veermin force, which will also be getting double duty with Kill Team. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know they were doing that. That's very interesting. Let's see here. Zachary Davis has anyone seen Primeval Clash on Kickstarter? It's a skirmish game of dinosaur riding tribesmen. Well, that sounds kind of interesting. Huh. John Anthony Smith says that Frostgrave sounds like it would give me a reason to paint some of my ancient Rel Partha stuff from 40 years ago. Yeah, that's another game. Frostgrave reminds me of like what a person who really enjoys D&D would do to make a miniatures game, sort of, because there's like leveling and spells and it's not everybody in your warband or whatever can level. Only really the wizard and the apprentice. Everyone else is just basically kind of an interchangeable hench person. And so it's a cool system though. And again, you can use whatever the heck kind of, fantasy style models you want. Greetings from Finland. Hey, 6Gunner86. Currently assembling my Death Guard kill team. Amazing models. I don't like the demon stuff so much, but the mortals are awesome in 40K and in Age of Sigmar. Yeah, again, for Nurgle, I'm not a big fan of like the Plaguebringer, like the demon, the Nurgle demons. I just don't like the aesthetic for some reason. I don't know what it is, but like the Blight Kings and all of those, and the Death Guard and all those different types of like big kind of chonky boy, plague folks, those I like. The plague demons, little Nurglings and all that stuff, I'm just not super interested in those. I'm not sure why. Let's see. People talking about Dead Zone rules are also free now. Well, that's really interesting. Huh. I mean, it makes sense because if you get people, it to some degree it's free marketing. You know what I mean? And then the idea is that if you buy the or if you download the model or the rules for free, hopefully at some point you'll either order models from them or something along those lines. I've been a big fan. If you're going to sell models and rules, I think that you should offer the rules for free in most situations. Certainly also if you want to try to sell them, because there are people out there who are like, I don't want to look at a PDF. I only want physical, like a physical copy. And that's great. But there are also people out there who are like, I want to take a look at the book before I buy it. Like how many times have you gone into a store and you're like, oh, the book is all completely covered in plastic, And I understand that they shrink wrap these books sometimes so that they don't get all beat up on the shelf. But on the other hand, when you can't tell what's on the inside, I'm less likely to buy a book sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's a catch-22, I guess. Frankie Lee Bailey says, good morning all, joining a bit late this morning. I posted some info on a Resin 3 printer for you in the Discord chat that may be of interest. I think I saw that. It's one of the Photons or any Cubics or one of those. It's got like a hood over it. I think I did see that actually, yes. All Daddy Nergal says, hey Uncle Adam, turned out I was able to make it. Well, good to have you. Any good solo games that have come out? Well, I think that probably Rangers of Shadow Deep is a cool one if you're into fantasy stuff. Rangers of Shadow Deep is by the same guy who wrote Frostgrave and has also written Oathmark, I think. It is a... Rangers of Shadow Deep reminds me a good deal of Frostgrave, but it's even more narratively designed, and it also does have solo play rules built in. So that's at least one that I can think of off the top of my head. As far as solo play rules for sci-fi, that's a good question. I believe that... Oh gosh, what's that one from Mantic? It's not Dead Zone. It's kind of like Star Saga. Star Saga's got single play rules, and so does... I did a video about this actually a while back about single play rules. Star Saga and now there's another one. I just lost it. Yeah, do a Google search actually on YouTube or whatever, do a search on YouTube. I did a video about single play rules, and there's some sets in there. I know Star Saga is one. I know that Rangers of Shadow Deep is another good one, and there are other ones as well. Fallout, Wasteland Warfare is also got single play rules as well, if you're into the the post-apocalyptic kind of thing. Vose Noctum says, it's worth mentioning that Infinity's rules are always on their site for free, of course. Yes. Who else did that too? I mean, Cool Mini used to do that too with their games. Like, you could get the free download of like Dark Age and like Wrath of Kings and stuff like that. But you could still also buy the book if you wanted to, if you just like were into books, Brian Etheridge says that Flames of War has released some free solo scenarios. Well, that's cool. I'm hoping, I know there's been some talk, but hopefully that Planet 28 game I was kind of showing you there for a bit ago, he's trying to figure out some sort of like solo something, or someone else in the Facebook group was trying to figure out something solo. I may end up just doing a battle report that's basically like a 2-player game, but I'll just play both parts. I don't know. Maybe I'll wear a hat in the second part, I'm not sure. But yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Depends on how long this all goes, I guess. Let me see. People talking about different solo games. John Ashley Smith says, always meant to get a copy of Osprey's Horizon Wars. Is it still available? I mean, probably in PDF. I think it would be sort of silly for a company to ever like discontinue PDFs. I swear I own a hardcover of it someplace in the basement. Like, I don't remember if they sent it to me or if I bought it. I'm not sure which, but yeah, that name sounds really familiar. It was really dense. There's a lot going on in that rule set. I remember as I flipped through it. So there you go. Deep Red says, hail and well met from the UK, painting Dark Elves for Oathmark. Oathmark is interesting. Like, it's written by the same guy who did Frostgrave, like I said, Joe McCullough. And the book looks great because they sent me a copy of it. But I don't see myself playing it because it's a Rankin. Excuse me. It's a rank and flank game, so it's one of those games where you're moving your units of models like in rectangles. They stay together, stuck as a group. And I'm just not into those. I don't know why. I'm not saying that you're wrong if you like that kind of stuff. I mean, Kings of War is obviously doing pretty well. It's just, for me, that play style has never been something that's interested me, which is why I never got into Warhammer Fantasy. And when Age of Sigmar came along, then I was like, hey, cool. Now I can, move my guys the way I want to. Yeah. Let's see here. Is there any single-player games for Tabletop Sim so I can try to use Tabletop Sim? I mean, again, like Tabletop Sim it's literally just basically kind of like Emily said before. It's basically a physics engine. So you just move stuff around. Like there's no AI, there's no anything. It's just you put things where you put things. So it is kind of a situation where you want to play, with somebody. John Ashley Smith says, I've tried to watch a couple Infinity battle reports. I still can't figure it. Love the minis, though. Superb. I've gone through a couple of demos of Infinity. One of them, Sam, was giving me the demo. And the rule set for some reason just does not catch in my brain. It's very different than a lot of other war games, which to a lot of people I think is probably a really good thing. But to me, it sort of throws me off. And so it's just never quite stuck in my brain. Let's see here. Bunch of bless yous and gesundheits for my sneeze. I apologize for sneezing. I have allergies, and so it's becoming that time of the year. 12 Neef, hey, how you doing? Good morning. Working on my Black Library of Shame. Enough painting, need to get back into reading. Just finished Shadespire and loved it. Wish I hadn't waited 2 years to read it. Oh, I did not know there was a Shadespire book. That makes sense, though. That's pretty cool. Melody Dawn says, I hate rank and flank. I'm using my Rune Wars minis in my rule set. Well, that's one of the reasons is like the Rune Wars minis, I was like, when they showed that it was gonna be rank and flank, I was like kind of interested because like the undeads like models I think are really cool in the old Rune Wars there. But then I was like in a cartoony sort of way, I was like, oh, these are kind of neat. And then I started looking at the way the game was played, and I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't like pushing around the those types of games. So yeah. Let's see here. I also found a bunch of stuff from the Fantasy Flight game Rune Wars to use for Frostgrave. They're super cheap on Amazon right now. While the plastic isn't the best, the detail is. Yeah, you'll probably be able to find a lot of Rune Wars on eBay because I don't know, it was 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. Like pretty much everybody who went to Adepticon got the base like starter box Rune Wars game. That was like in the swag bag. It was like at the time like $100 starter box, and everybody got one. So people were like, "Oh, that's really cool," and then people were like, "I don't know if I see myself playing this," and so a lot of them went onto eBay. So they're probably quite cheap on eBay. That's a good point. Also, it seems as if Fantasy Flight has, they seem to have abandoned it a little bit, maybe. So that's kind of a bummer. But let's see here. What else have we got? C4 Darkmane says Undead Rune Wars were awesome. Humans were bad. I don't remember the humans being bad, but definitely the undead were cool sculpts. I really liked them. Let me see. Have you ever played Giant Killer Robots? Yes. That's the one from Weta Workshops? Yes. I own it actually. Yeah. I've not played it in a long time, unfortunately. Let's see. Have you ever looked at Chain of Command or Sharp Practice for a historical skirmish game? I've heard of Sharp Practice. I don't think I've heard of Chain of Command. But no, I haven't played either of them. So, I would like sometimes the concept of a historical skirmish game, but I don't know. I'm a little bit less interested in historical games. Like for a while, I was kind of interested in like my early 40s. I was kind of interested in historical games, and then I got to a point where I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to play games that actually like war games that actually happened. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just a personal thing where it just like because I started thinking about like when you're when you're playing a game that's fake, when you're playing a game that's a science fiction, or fantasy with elves and dwarves and stuff like that, that's one thing. But when you're playing like World War II, like this kind of sort of actually happened. I mean, not this particular game that we're playing. Like this isn't a one-to-one simulation, obviously, but like there were people's grandpas and great grandpas who were running around, with Tommy guns and this and that and the other thing. And I start to think about it a little bit more than I want to, and then it doesn't seem as much like a game, unfortunately. So yeah, I don't know. It's not. It's weird, I'll admit, but it's something I've been thinking about here and there lately, and so it's put me off of historical stuff a little bit. I still like Conflict 47 because there's also werewolves and laser tanks and whatnot, and so that's a different story. That's obviously fantasy, or is it? But yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I've been mainly focusing on stuff that's more like crazy sci-fi or crazy fantasy stuff. I gotta be honest, like straight up like post-apocalyptic media these days, like literally these last couple, like I've always been a huge like Mad Max fan, all that kind of stuff. I'm not super interested in watching something post-apocalyptic right now, just because I don't want to say it hits a little too close to home, but it hits a little too close to home. So I would much rather watch fantasy, I guess, right now, or sci-fi, that kind of thing. Like I said, we watched that Onward Pixar movie last night, and that was nice. I don't know. It's just my own kind of weird brain as far as that's concerned. Lee Davis says, I am enjoying Wargames Atlantic. Les Grognard's models look really cool. Really cool sci-fi Napoleonic French-style guardsmen, perfect for making a kill team. The box comes with 192 heads. I had no idea how many heads there were. So I just came across them, the Wargames Atlantic. It was like there was a bunch of sales for like Adepta Cant or something like that or whatever. I don't even know exactly how I came across it, but I came across Wargames Atlantic and I saw these models and I'm like, oh, these are really cool. Like, this set's pretty interesting. I kind of think that's neat. I could use those for a bunch of other games and things like that I'm working on. And so I was looking at it and they were like, it's like $35. I'm like, okay, $35, that's a pretty good price for a unit of 10 guys. No, it's like a unit of 24 guys. And also, they're plastic. I thought that maybe they were resin, kind of like these things from Victoria Miniatures, or maybe they were metal, but they're hard plastic. So you're getting 24 guys from Wargames Atlantic, which I'd never heard of before, for $35, and they come with a zillion bits. You're saying that there's 192 heads in that box. That's crazy. So I ordered the two sets. There's the kind of like French guys who are like French but also sci-fi, and then there's another group that's a little bit more, they kind of almost look like guardsmen but not quite. And so I don't know when they're going to show up, because who knows these days, but I did order them last week. Yeah, I'm looking forward to them. They'll be interesting. I've never heard of Wargames Atlantic before. I don't know where they came from or anything like that. It just sort of all of a sudden popped up on my radar, and I ordered some stuff, so that's very cool. Elric Dota says, hi, Uncle Adam, first time catching you live. Well, thanks for coming. Glad to have you. Let's see. I feel iffy about World War II games, but I like the miniatures, says David Moffat. Yeah, no, I know what you mean, too. Like, it's a lot of fun to paint tanks and stuff like that. Yeah. Sharp Practice presents historical in a more novelistic approach. You can write your own story with it. Oh, that's kind of cool. I like the name. I don't know why, but Sharp Practice sounds fancy. I don't know. It's not exactly what. Anyway, Tom Ashley says, "Did you enjoy the Onward movie?" Yeah, I did. Like, and it wasn't long, but I felt it was just maybe a touch long. But it wasn't. I don't know. I maybe was not just in the perfect headspace for it, because it's only like, well, I don't know. It's maybe like an hour and 45, which is kind of long sometimes, I think, for like a more animated movie. It could have been just a touch shorter, in my opinion, but otherwise it was not too bad. But yeah, I mean, it looked amazing, and obviously, and the story was good, and I liked pretty much all the voice acting. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Are there any good tabletop with naval games, pirates discovering a new world. I know that for pirates and stuff, is Black Powder a pirate game? There are pirate games out there. I can't think. Please, folks, post some pirate game in the chat. Fire and Flintlock? No, Flintlock Games. Fire and Pike and Shot. There's actually a bunch, and I just can't ever keep any of the names straight because they're all kind of, at least in my opinion, the sort of the same. But yeah, definitely, there are some cool pirate games. Like, it depends if you're like looking for, like, I know the one I'm thinking of, which I think is from Firelock or Flintlock Games or something like that. Like, there are pirate boats that are like, they're resin or maybe they're 3D printed, I'm not sure. But you buy them and they're like good size because it's a 28 millimeter style game. And so these boats are technically kind of small. They're like sloops maybe or something. I don't know. Because like a full-blown like war galleon at 28 millimeter scale would be, you can't even see how big it would be on the screen. It would be very large, probably 2.5, 3 feet long, if not bigger. So honestly, though, I don't know. For pirate games, there's a video game called Sea of Thieves, which I really enjoy. I haven't played it in a couple of months, but I do enjoy it because it's got this great looking kind of cartoony but yet very realistic in certain ways kind of style, and I do enjoy it quite a bit. And it's just way easier. You don't have to try to lug around a big boat and take it over to your local game shop or to your friend's house to play it. So there you go. Blood and Plunder. That sounds right. Yes. I knew it was like something and something. Blood and Plunder is a good one, evidently, for that kind of thing. You can find Dreadfleet cheap if you can, and that's Warhammer Fantasy Pirates. That's true. If you do, because that's smaller scale. Like, those boats are like at the biggest, maybe only about 6 inches long. So that's not bad. Let's see here. For Pirates, Raging Heroes have started advertising one on their Facebook. Not much of it is out yet, so that's cool. What was the pirate game that dude was doing at TMX? He put so much effort into it. Oh gosh, pirate game at TMX. I am blanking. It might have been Blood and Plunder. Let's see here. Good morning, Adam. What do you think about the next GWAS Army model update will be? What do you think that the next Army model update will be? I think probably one of the next model updates. I watched the live stream thingy yesterday, although it started an hour early. I don't know why. Like, I understand that this is all relatively new ground for them, but like, I watched the one 2 weeks ago where it started at like, I think 8:45 my time, which was odd. And then like they would talk for 5 to 10 minutes, and then there would be like 5 minutes and nothing, and then talk for 5 to 10 minutes and 5 minutes and nothing, and and I was okay. This time they got those gaps out of there. Fine, that's cool. But it also started an hour early, which I didn't notice until it was too late. And yeah, it was interesting to me. And now they're not going. Then next week they're taking off, and then 2 weeks from now they're doing it again. Anyway, probably the next models are going to show off might be the Giants, because they teased the Giants Battle Tome, Sons of Bahamut or whatever. They teased the Battle Tome, talked a little bit about it in the video yesterday, the live stream, and so probably in 2 weeks they might show off some of the Giants. I know I was watching after the fact. I was watching Warhammer Weekly with Vince and Tom, and they were talking about the Giants and stuff like that, and talking about whether do we think these Giants are going to be the normal Giants that they're currently selling, that are about maybe 6 to 7 inches tall tops, or are they going to come up with some big honking Giants? Like, they're both like, we want 10 to 12 inch Giants, and that's very cool. I mean, they kind of could, really. They would be taller than Imperial Knights, but they would also be skinnier. So it's yeah, I don't know, but that's probably what I kind of see. Useful G says, hello everyone, apologies for being late, but I've been basically asleep since Friday with a cold. No symptoms of COVID for those that are just really tired. Well, that's good to hear. Daylight savings in the UK is the reason for the... Oh, it was daylight savings in the UK. That's what threw me off. Gotcha. Okay. I didn't... Yeah, because I forgot that... Yeah, that's right. We do our daylight savings early. There you go. That makes sense. Let's see here. Emily's like, they did start early. I just had the time wrong. No, it's just because sometime back in the early 2000s, all of a sudden we decided to go our own way with daylight savings and do it in March. No, Yeah, March. So there we are. There you go. I'm looking forward to Primaris bikes. I mean, that's cool. I mean, it's not. Well, it is. It's fine. If you want like Primaris bikes, that's I and people buy them, and that's great. I've always thought it was weird to have motorcycles in combat. I'm not saying that you can't have. I mean, obviously, in like World War II and things like people would drive around on motorcycles, to get places, couriers, scouts, stuff like that. Sure, but you never went into combat on a motorcycle. That's really hard. It's hard on a horse, but it is way more hard on a motorcycle. So the whole concept, like I had chaos bikers because there was a edition at one point where you were dumb if you didn't because they were super crazy powerful, especially if they were Nurgle, because then they were toughness because I think they were toughness, they were toughness 5 if they were bikers, and if they were Nurgle bikers, they were toughness 6, something like that. Anyway, so I've run them before in games back when I played 40K, back then, but yeah, I've always thought it was weird to have motorcycles in combat. So, it makes sense that probably, I guess, that they would make Primaris bikers because I bet they'd sell. And I'm sure there'll be awesome sculpts, but it's always been weird to me to have, like, why are these guys on motorcycles? Like, I get it. It's like cavalry a little bit, except that no one really does that. Anyway, like, that's the things when you would get into combat with a motorcycle. Like, a motorcycle, if it's doing its job, should just basically just bust through lines and then turn around, and it's like almost like jousting. You know what I mean? Like in movies and stuff like that, and I don't know what the historical accuracy of this is, but in movies, if you are like, if I was fighting against a guy who was on a horse and I was on the ground, as soon as he stopped, I would stab that horse. I mean, I wouldn't want to, but it's war. What do you got to do? Like, it seems like it's a really big target. It's easier to stab the horse than it is to stab the guy way up there, right? So, yeah. So if it's a motorcycle and you stop, you are now sort of straddling this weird piece of machinery, and it would be relatively simple for me to push you over. If you did not stop and you just were just driving through and hitting guys, that's a different story altogether. I don't know. ZM says concept of bikers is stupid to me. See, there we go. Now we're on the same page. Slev says that 40K bikes are there because it is technically fantasy and that is therefore horseback. I get that too, definitely. I don't know if are they talking about doing Primaris? I have not heard a rumor about Primaris motorcycles, but that's I could see that, I guess. Melanie Dawn says, I love bikes. I order some from Puppets War, but they're taking forever to get here. Been a month, which is unusual for them. Puppets War, I think, is in Poland, so who knows what's going on with the mail and all that kind of stuff from there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the bikes look cool. They're, actually, a lot of the stuff from Puppets War looks really cool anyway. Like, they've been making their own kind of like pseudo sort of kind of Space Marine type folks, people in power armor at least, and I think they're kind of cool looking. Ralph says, I'm just getting back into the hobby after 20 years away, seeing a lot about Primaris Marines being the correct proportion Marines. I play Chaos. Are the new Chaos sculpts the same proportions as Primaris? So the new Chaos sculpts, in that situation, we're talking about probably like Death Guard and even the normal, like, Garden Variety new Chaos sculpts. They are bigger than old Chaos sculpts, but they're not quite as big, I think, as Primaris. They're close, though. I know that in the stats, for Kill Team, as an example, my Death Guard are only 1 wound, whereas Primaris are 2 wounds. Primaris are supposed to be really huge and monstrous, like way bigger. Like Space Marines, normal tactical style Space Marines have always been, when they're not in their armor, allegedly 7 feet tall, and I'm assuming that Primaris guys, when not in their armor, are supposed to be 8 feet tall. So, like, they're really, really huge, is the idea. Motorcycles in combat is a rule of cool / anime, not usefulness. You can't swing your scythe from a car. Well, not with that attitude. I mean, you could just attach the scythe to the car. See there, that's the way to do it. Luke says that there was a leaked screenshot of some Primaris bikers, I'm assuming. Well, that's all right. Well, very pixelated though. What about hover bikers? Now, hover bikers would be sort of cool, but again, you should never stop. You know what I mean? I don't. Yeah. let's see here. Adron says that a Vespa would provide a nice shield to the front. Sure, that makes sense. I can see that. If Fulgrim comes back without a Loyalist Primarch, also the story just gets weird. With that power of 3 Chaos Primarchs, Chaos should win. Of course, Korax has been chasing Fulgrim through the warp. Yeah, I suppose. People are saying that Poland has stopped shipping. International mail is shut down, at least. Well, that's a problem. Inquisitor Pedro says, going out of my mind looking for my box of decals. Ripped out everything in my hobby room now and staring at a huge pile of shame. Yeah, I was looking for my box of heads and other bits, which I had recently purchased. Well, recently, within the last 6 months, I had purchased a bunch from Puppets War, Anvil Industries, Statuesque Miniatures, a couple other companies. And I put them all in a box so I would remember where they were, and then I put the box in place. And I was looking yesterday. I did find them, though. They were just they were under a sweatshirt, which was, I don't know why a sweatshirt was in the basement, just laying on top of the table, but I had not thought that I had put it there, and I had. So it'd be like that. Yeah, so I did find them, thankfully, and then I was able to do a little bit more kit bashing yesterday afternoon. Yes. Roland, well, thank you very much. Thank you for all you do. You are a positive light in dark times. I just want to thank you for that. I appreciate that, Roland. That's very nice. I prefer to be positive if I can. That just seems like a good idea. Useful G says, drive me closer so I can swing my scythe. That's, I've seen that, that meme, I guess. Hey Adam, could you please show us your pile of shame of plastics and all those goodies? Well, not up here, no, because I'm in the dining room. All my stuff is in the basement, and I don't generally stream from the basement. But that does remind me, I have more stuff to show you though that I'm working on. Hence the title of the video. Nope, that's the wrong button. That's the right one. What are we doing for Shelter and Hobby? So things I'm working on. Like I said, I'm working on a second warband for Starbreach. I'm just showing you the book because it happened to be near me. But I can't show you those guys yet, but I will post them on Instagram and places like that once they're done. And like I said, today I believe I will be doing the enamel washing. But also I've got some other stuff I'm working on. So I got a wild hair, which I think is a good time for this to happen. And I started working on a little bit of terrain that I had sitting around as well. So I've had 2 of these bastions, these 40K bastions, sitting around for 120 years. I don't know. I've had them forever, like nearly since they came out. And I built them and then didn't do anything with them. And then a while ago, I finally, like maybe last year, I was like, I should prime them. Like it was a nice day and I had time and I was priming something else. So I just started grabbing terrain and taking it outside and spraying it so that at least it was primed. So this is primed gray. And then yesterday, what I did was I went through and I used a lot of contrast paints, actually. So like this part down here is like basilicum gray, and so is this kind of weird cupola thing, and these windows are basilicum gray. These weird, I don't know what the heck these things are, like little lights and stuff like that are one of the browns, not wildwood, but one of the other dark browns. This color along the rim up on the top here, that's actually oak brown, which I'm glad that I have this bottle sitting right here because I almost finished with my bottle downstairs. Oak brown is from Army Painter is like my favorite, like dark chocolate brown, and I use it for a lot of stuff, specifically for bases for metals. I paint that down and then paint like a gold over it. Now I'm not going to make this gold, I don't think, but I do want to have the metals look. I want to make this look old and beat up. So you'll notice up in the top here, this is again the same chocolate brown, but this is all just a contrast paint. And again, it's the same dark brown, but not wildwood that I did with these. The contrast paints work really well on terrain, the darkest ones, because they're so fluid you can paint them on very quickly and they cover in one coat quite well. So it kind of works nice for that, because what my plan is before I start figuring out how I'm going to weather this, I'm going to go through on all these dark parts, basically. Not like this or this particularly, but on a lot of these other dark parts. And I'm going to dry brush these with metal so that they look like they are old like kind of corroded or whatever. You're only going to see like a little bit of metal in some of the raised parts, but otherwise it's going to be pretty dark. If I'm going to be doing that along the rim and the top up here, I'm going to be doing some of it here. Like this is all a rusty plate that basically you walk around on because that's all metal anyway. I'm going to do it on these weird bird things. I'm going to do it on these skull lights. I don't know, whatever. There's little aquillas, whatever, up here, which I will touch up a little bit in gold, but it'll look like it's old and kind of, again, you know, faded, or not faded, but like corroded or whatever. Tarnished is the word I'm looking for. So anyway, and then I got to figure out what I want to do airbrush-wise to kind of bring this sort of down so it's not all so monotone. I want to give it some streakiness. I was thinking about trying to use maybe some... I was thinking about using some like enamel washes, like maybe streaking grime or something like that. But the spray that I put on this when I did is very, very matte. You can hear that right there. That means matte right there. As opposed, if it was really glossy, it wouldn't make any noise when I ran my finger across it. It's probably not true. But so I don't know that putting on enamel wash and trying to rub it off would work. I could spray the whole thing in gloss, but that seems like, I don't know if I want to do that. So I'm going to try to figure out, I might just actually throw some contrast paint into my airbrush and then just darken the edges here and there and not use enamels at all. I'm going to figure it out. But like this is a thing where, like, I was working on these models and I was getting to this point where I'm like, all right, I have to take the next big step where everything goes into the airbrush room and I start working on it. And that's cool, but I wasn't particularly prepared to do it yesterday, like getting later in the afternoons, and we were going to be making dinner soon and all that kind of stuff, so that I just started working on other projects. It's always great to have, and I've talked about this before in other videos, it's great to have projects that are close to being done or partially done so that when you get sort of stuck or maybe a little bit less motivated or you're running out of time or something like that on this, you can still be doing something and just grab something else and be like, oh, cool, I'm going to work on painting the, the metal plating here or whatever. So yeah, these will not be used for 40K particularly. These will probably be used maybe as something in Kill Team, but they also probably will be used in other kind of games as well. I don't have any of the guns that go in here. I don't know what I did with them, but that's fine. They're going to be ruins without being like actually ruined or broken or whatever. But yeah, these, I've always liked this building. I always thought it was just kind of cool. So I'm looking forward to getting that done. And then Battlefield in a Box, I think is the name of the company. It's from Gale Force 9. They make these cool, they're like, I don't know what you would call them. They're like just basically rock outcroppings and stuff like that. And they come pre-painted like this. This is what they come out of the box, which is great. But most of the stuff that I'm going to use these on, the tables that these would get used on, are going to be much more of a sandy kind of tan desert color. So another quickie project, quick win, while I'm here stuck mostly in the house, is I'm going to be painting, like dry brushing around the edges so that it goes from like a sandy light tan desert color and then sort of fades up to the dark rock so that there's not such a stark contrast between the edge of the base of these pieces of terrain and what I'm going to be setting them on, which, like I said, is basically like a much lighter sand color, kind of tan. I've got a couple different desert boards actually I've got at least one desert board that's an old school Realm of Battle board from GW, and then I've got a couple desert mats that are all like a lighter tan color, and so these will work well for Star Wars Legion, Kill Team, lots of different types of games where I've got that stuff going on. And then another project that I'm also working on, which just showed up a little while ago because I ordered it, is Secret Weapon Miniatures makes these plastic tiles, which are awesome. They're called tablescapes, I think. If you've watched the Kill Team battle report that I did like a month and a half ago or whatever, that was all filmed on their tablescapes that are like ruined urban streets that I had painted up and all that stuff, and I really love the look. So these are a new set that I bought. There are 8 of them. They're not all identical. They're actually all different. But they've got like all kinds, like there's a definite 3-dimensionality. Like look at that. You can definitely get some cover behind those rocks and those big blocks. So I washed these all yesterday to make sure there's never There's no like what do they call it, mold release on them, which will make the paint maybe not stick. And once it gets to closer to 60 degrees outside Fahrenheit, which is hopefully this week, I'll be going outside and spraying these. Now the thing is I have not decided yet what color. I don't know if I'm going to spray them gray, because it's like, they've got these stone, it's all these, like, all of them have stone tile. Some of them only have it more around the edge, and then there's like more dirt and other kinds of rubble. But then I thought, well, maybe I do it like a deserty sort of tan color, and this is all limestone. I haven't decided on that part yet. I did watch a video last night, actually, of Kenny Boucher from Next Level Painting. He was painting this very set, and he just basically went through black and whited it all with rattle cans to do like a zenithal thing, and then used a brown transparent paint from Monument / Creature Caster / Pro Acryl, whatever, the Pro Acryl line of transparents, and then he just used his airbrush and did that, and it looked really cool actually. But it was maybe a little darker brown than I might want to go, so I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out too, but that you'll see these tiles eventually in battle reports as well, and other videos possibly as well. So yeah, so these are kind of cool. Like I said, I got these out secret weapon miniatures, and they're very neat. I don't know. They're 1 foot by 1 foot, so they're actually really great for Kill Team, because it's very easy to make a 24 by 36 inch board, which is pretty close to the 22 by 30 standard. The 2 foot by 2 foot boards from GW, you are basically stuck making a 24 by 48, which is a little bit long, but not the end of the world. So anyway, Kelly says that Monster Terrain has some cool pre-painted trees, rocks, and other stuff. I agree, and I should be receiving some of those soon, because I did the Kickstarter back last year, I think, yeah. And so from the most recent report, it's one of the few Kickstarters I did last year, but from the most recent report, those trees should be showing up, like they're in the country now, and hopefully they should be showing up very soon. So, let's see here. Rocks or big turds? Well, they're technically rocks. I mean, I don't know. I forget what they're called. Not berms. I don't know. But they're cool, and they're really nice, like pre-paint. Like this is great as long as it matches the color of your board. But for me, I just want to like, again, kind of dry brush around the edges so that they kind of blend into the board a little bit better, at least at the base, and then have the outcroppings and kind of stuff like that. So yeah, that was. So like those I bought, like these I bought a year ago, a year and a half ago at Origins. This is probably from easily 6-7 years ago. They've been sitting in my basement, and well, this is new. This is new, but yeah, I've been basically trying to go through the stuff I've got, and if I figure out like, well, what can I take that's already in the basement and make it go from there. So that's, yeah, none of the, well, like I said, other than the tiles, none of this stuff is new. It's all stuff that I've been trying to dig through and see what I can do. Useful G says, it's great priming weather outside this weekend, and I'm looking out the window like a sad doggy. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll get warmer today. I don't know what the temperature's supposed to be like. Thought it was supposed to rain, but now it's starting to get sunny. So who can say? Let me see. The Animaster says, having months of models to paint is one thing. Having the tools, paints, and other stuff that requires stock is another. Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit concerned about, having, well, I'm a bit concerned about having paints. Honestly, paints I'm probably fine on. I do have a suspicion that I may run out of glue eventually, depending on how things go. But I don't know. I could probably, like, the thing with super glue is that it won't be the best stuff, but I bet I could go to the grocery store or the hardware store and get super glue. Plastic cement's a different story, but I don't really use plastic cement too much. I know some people really do, but I generally don't. Death by French Fry says, is this now the every Sunday show? No, there was no show last week, and so yeah, this is still the every other Sunday show. Someone else asked that earlier, if there was like, didn't we just do this last week? And I think that we're all just a bit messed up by the time, being stuck indoors particularly. Yeah, so there was no show last week, and now there is one this week. Next week, so there was going to be a video last week, not a live video of me sitting here yammering at you, but it was going to be a video. It was an interview that I did with my friend John Caspian, who is the kind of marketing guy and works for a big, huge game store here in the United States called Gigabytes Cafe down near Atlanta, Marietta, Georgia. It's a big, huge, like 9,000 square foot store. They do a lot of miniature stuff. It's a friend of mine, been friends for a couple of years now. He was up in the area visiting family, and so we got together and we did a bat rep, which is coming soon, and we did a video where we kind of talked about like building community and stuff like that. And as I was going through and editing it last weekend, like on Saturday, I was like, I shouldn't put this video out right now because now is not the time for, like, we weren't talking about building community, you know, like online, because we filmed it in February or something like that. So it was not a situation where it, you know, so now going out there and telling people about starting a gaming club and hanging out with people is not a good thing to be telling people right now. So that's why I decided I'm not going to run that now. I'll run it eventually later. But so that's why there wasn't any video on Sunday this last week. I'm trying to sometimes, if I've got stuff to do, I want to try to put some videos up on Sundays in between the Every Other Sunday show, but I don't always have stuff to put in that slot. This upcoming week, in theory, if everything goes well, I should be putting the bat rep that we filmed at the same time, again, back in February when he was here, up. So next week, next week, there will be hopefully a Kill Team battle report. It's all filmed and everything like that, and it went better than the first one. So I just got to get it all edited and figure all that stuff out and put that up. So we'll see how it goes. Looking forward to that. So let's see here. Dave Parrott says, it's because the weeks are way longer when we aren't working. Well, I mean, and some of us still are, you know. I mean, some people are still having to go to work. They're in some sort of essential thing. Some of us are working from home, thankfully. But it does just make things, it becomes hard to tell what's going on day to day when your schedule gets so thrown off. Even though you're like still working in the normal hours, I find that I'm like, what day is it? You know what I mean? So that's kind of problematic. And then not going out and doing stuff, you know, like I've gone for walks and things like that, but my nose is really itchy because of the allergies, but I can't anyway. So yeah, that's yeah, it's tough. It's tough. The idea, hopefully though, is that potentially to take your mind off of it, a little bit of shelter and hobby, hashtag shelter and hobby on Instagram. I talked about it earlier. I'm going to talk about it again real quick. It's a hashtag that Emily here from the community came up with. When I asked the Patreon folks, the irregulars, I asked them, hey, what hashtag should we use here? And so the idea is for you to post things on Instagram with this hashtag, things that you've been working on while you've been kind of stuck at home, and start a conversation, become a content provider. You know, start yourself an Instagram account. It's easy, and then take pictures of cool stuff that you're working on, and then post it up there. People will say, hey, I like this. They'll ask questions. It'll be conversation back and forth. It takes your mind off of it and things like that. So yeah, shelter and hobby is the hashtag on Instagram. And even if you just don't want to post anything, or you're not really finding yourself working on stuff, going through and looking at other stuff that people are posting in that hashtag hopefully might motivate you to some degree so that you can do more of that, hopefully, because I think it's a good idea. All right, I'm going to turn that button off again. There we go. I wish it faded, but it doesn't seem to want to fade. Other people talking about working extra, working from home, but for more hours. So yeah, no, it's like, it's not like we're all on vacation. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that at all. So yeah. Andrew Connor says that John is the man. So glad to be an Atlanta native, so I have Giga in my backyard. Yeah, I want to visit Gigabytes Cafe at some point, someday. Right now, well, I've only been to Atlanta twice, and both times it's only been in the airport. So yeah, there's no game store in the airport. There should be. But yeah, that's, I would like to check that out. How many people missed garbage/recycling pickup day? I think I missed it this week, but did not miss it last week, so that's not so bad. Let's see here. Snowfight says, yeah, not leaving home for days and days is throwing me off for sure. Same here, absolutely, yeah. People talking about different types of glues. Melanie Dawn says, I posted 2 pictures to that hashtags just since I've been watching. Well, great. Excellent. Matthew Sears says, do not encourage Emily. Well, I think that, it's not a bad idea. Corvus Games Terrain says, are you getting into Marvel Crisis Protocol? Just finished designing some new terrain that doubles as token holders / measurement holder. All fits into the core box. Oh, that's kind of cool. I picked up the core box just before my local shop closed down to, outsiders and whatnot. And by outsiders, I mean people can't come in the store anymore. So I picked up the core box. I have not yet cracked it open because I've been working on these other projects, kind of these things I just showed you. But I'm going to at least give it a try. I mean, I'm going to paint the models, and then maybe, well, I don't know. I guess potentially maybe my wife and I could give it a try. Otherwise, I'm not playing against anybody right now. But I do want to try to paint the models at the very least. So at the very least, I'm going to paint some, if not all, of the models, just to give it a try, because I've never done that type of stuff before. Like, I'm not going to try to paint them. I've seen people do some like interesting sort of like cartoon style painting. It's almost like a cell shaded sort of like a lot of black lining and things like that. Reminds me a little bit of that Borderlands video game. And I understand that because it's comic books. I get that. I want mine to look a lot more realistic. So like I want a much more real, almost like a movie style kind of, because the movies have to, for lack of a better word, actually sort of exist. I mean, like obviously the Iron Man armor is predominantly CG or whatever, but it has to look at least real. So I kind of want to try to paint that way with the majority of these models. I know on some of them that will look weird. Like if I ever get that weird MODOK model, like he's like a big head that sort of looks like he's keeping himself. He's just like a giant head with like little tiny arms and legs, and he looks like he's basically just propelling himself around on farts. I don't know what the hell. I don't know that person. He's never been in any of the movies. I've never really read a ton of the Marvel comic books. I read Daredevil a little bit for a while. But otherwise, I never really read a lot of the normal superhero comic books. Anyway, so I probably won't paint that guy because he looks crazy. But some of the other ones I would like to paint and try to make them look a little bit more realistic. So that's at the very least what'll happen. Maybe I will start playing it and maybe make a battle report at some point. That's a potential, but we will see. Calvin Blitman says, also apparently liquor stores are essential. Well, in Wisconsin, yes, that's for sure. Let's see here. Does anyone else get disappointed when you think you've made an excellent contribution? You just know... I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry. He spends 10 minutes showing off his rocks. I can't answer every comment that pops up in the thing, unfortunately. So sorry I missed it. Hey, Engineer Jeff, how you doing? Let's see here. Engineer Jeff says he's a big fanboy of the comics. Easy transition for what I do into superhero stuff. Yeah, that makes totally sense. Corvus says that some of the minis in the Marvel Crisis Protocol core box are a bit fiddly to put together compared to other companies. I have heard some comparisons to Malifaux, so I'm a little nervous about that. Nervous is not the right word, but I'm a little like, I kind of wish that they weren't as hard to build, maybe. And and I think that that's a problem for their target audience a little bit. I think that, like, if they're trying to also pull down some of the HeroClix type players, making the models really hard to build is really going to drive them away. So I don't know. Yeah, I know some HeroClix because there's a big HeroClix community in my local area, and there's a bunch of them that are like, I'm interested, but I would have to have somebody else paint them and build them because I don't think I can do that. Which I want to sit down and say, look, you can. That's kind of the point of the channel. But making the models more difficult to build, I think, is also a problem. Dick says that, so Crisis Protocol is O scale. That lines up fairly well with 1/35 scale miniatures. Too bad all the guns in that scale are unrealistic and not gamified. I've heard that it's O scale, I believe, which is going to be helpful for finding buildings and stuff and terrain, because you can use stuff from, railroad. This is railroads. Railroad company. Like train boards and stuff like that. Yeah. Let's see. It's weird that a hobby that's enjoyed indoors is being negatively affected by a pandemic that forces you to remain indoors. To some degree, it's shipping. I mean, at that point, I think because the thing with glue specifically, I was talking about glue, is that it doesn't sit real well. Like if I was to buy a whole bunch of glue bottles, the CA glue, the super glue stuff, and then like sit on it, so I've got like a big backstock, then it'll kind of go bad. I think like it will become less sticky. I've found there's times when I'm like, oh, I'll just take this bottle of glue that I've been not used in a while because I've been in paint mode, and then you'll find that it's just not sticking very well, and it's oxidization or science, some junk like that. But yeah, so that's difficult. So yeah, that's why you don't want it. Like paints, as long as it's sealed pretty well, you can generally hold on to paints for like a good long time. But glues, I've found, at least again, CA style glue doesn't last forever. So yeah. What else? People talking about Loki's tiny horns are separate pieces. If you drop one, you may never find it again. Yeah, that's a problem. Jay Tick says, "Yeah, no, don't tell them they can do it themselves. Tell them that they can't, and then send them to Josh and my painting service." Honestly, I think that the Marvel game could definitely become more painting commission work for commission painters. And also, I found, at least around here, the Warhammer Underworlds there was a lot of like Magic players who were like, I want to play, and I've been playing with these unpainted but yet colored plastic miniatures, but I want to get them painted. And there's just like maybe 4 or 5 guys in my warband or whatever, maybe 3 depending on the warband. So yeah, it's definitely a situation where you can. I've seen local kind of smaller commission, like part-time commission people who are picking up commissions for Underworlds quite a bit. So that's definitely cool. Let's see here. I've been trying to get rid of my hero clicks, but there is literally nobody in my area who plays, says Colin. Yeah, all these types of games, all these tabletop games have a tendency to end up being very. Like in some areas this game is very popular, in other areas this game is very popular, and this, it's interesting to see these different pockets all over the different the country and probably the world. Evidently, we can use vodka from your local liquor store instead of isopropyl alcohol, and fire it through your airbrush, or you can also clean old minis with it. There you go. Let's see here. Patrick says, I'm hoping to get to Ireland later this year. Should I bring armies? Are there many places to catch a game in the areas between Dublin and... that is not a question for me, as I've not been there, but if those Irish folks are watching, they could hopefully answer that question, so that'd be pretty cool. Let's see. Being told that plastic cement lasts for decades. Well, that's a definite pro in its corner, as opposed to a con. That seems like a good idea, because CA glue I've found does not last forever. Maybe if it's like completely sealed. That's a good question. I haven't thought of that. Like, how like when you buy like a good bottle of CA, well, pretty much any kind of CA glue, you've got to like poke a hole in it to so you can start getting the glue out. I wonder if like CA glue, when it's completely sealed like that, it would last longer. I don't know. Elric Dotas says, did you ever use Tabletop Simulator on Steam to digitally try Tabletop? I have not as of yet. I am thinking about picking it up because other people on here have told me that it's on sale. This, at least until someone posted until the 7th, which is like Tuesday. So it's a half price, so it's $10 instead of 20. There were some folks that were playing, there were some of the Patreon irregulars on the Discord and all that were playing Gaslands on on Tabletop Simulator. I do want to try it out. I think it would be kind of interesting. Like I said, I'm thinking about trying to pick it up. But yeah, that's definitely something. Dice Dealer says, my closest pharmacy closed too. Joy's living downtown Vegas. Grocery will still carry liquor. Well, that's weird that the pharmacy closed. I mean, I would think that usually pharmacies are more of a essential or whatever, because that's where people get their medicine. Inquisitor Pedro found the decals box. That's good to hear. Massive motivation boost for the day. Got to go tidy up before I can get back to hobbying. Well, I'm glad that you found your box of decals. That's one of the things I do want to work on as well, is getting better. I talked about that, I think, I talked about it either in a video recently or else it was the last live video. But yeah, I want to get better at doing water slide transfers. Vose Noctum says, someone should develop an app that lets you find game stores in Ireland. Aha, well, someone has. Yeah, actually, if you try out Game4, the app that's part of my day job, and is currently not super useful for connecting you with tabletop gamers because you're not supposed to connect, but it does still have the probably world's best listing of online or of game stores, world's best database of tabletop game stores. We've got 6,800 some game stores in there. So if you download the Game4 app, or if you go to the website, which is www.iamgamefor, and it's GAMEFOR.com. So it's IAMGAMEFOR.com. If you go to that /web, then you can use the web version of Game4 if you don't want to download the app or if you don't have a phone or whatever. And then you can search for stores and things like that in the store finder. It's part of the app and the website. So yeah, definitely. You can find store, if you're traveling someplace and you're like, geez, I wonder if there's stores nearby. You can pull up the app and go, boom, oh yeah, here's the closest store. It's only, 2 miles away or whatever. So that's very cool. Let's see. Alex says, hey, Adam, how much did you find that becoming a titan of YouTube and vlogging helped in your modeling and painting? What would you say what was its biggest benefit? I'm not a titan of anything. I would say, though, that especially when I started in 2015. So I started the channel in March of 2013. So it's been just over 7 years now I've been doing this. But the first 2.5 years, I was 3 weeks in between videos, a week between videos, a month between videos. I was all over the board. I was not following a set schedule. Then in mid 2015, late-ish 2015, it was October, I decided I was going to start doing it every single Friday and do that. So I've been putting out a video every single Friday now for over 4 years, about 4.5 years. So I've kept up that schedule. Keeping up the schedule is super important for YouTube because putting stuff out at the same time, the same day every week or whatever, that kind of thing, however you do it, does help YouTube look at you as being more serious than not. If you're kind of you do it once in a while, YouTube is okay, well, that person's kind of a hobbyist. But when you stick to a schedule, YouTube takes it a little bit more seriously, the algorithm or whatever. That all being said, it has kept me motivated because there's it makes me paint more to some degree because I'm constantly trying to kind of make things to either have in, show off or talk about or whatever, that kind of stuff. To some degree, it's helped that way. I have also noticed that there's plenty of times I would rather be painting, but I got to edit or I got to, do something else that relates to the channel. So there's also times when I could be well, I could just be painting right now, but I got to edit for the next 3 hours or whatever. So it can get in the way as well. But yeah, it's hard to say. I've enjoyed being able to go to conventions and having a reason to travel a little bit more for that because it gets me to meet more folks, but it also gets me to see more products and things like that. When you go to conventions, you'll see stuff from there's Games Workshop, there's Battle Foam, there's the big names that we know, but you'll also see, even at LVO, I came across a couple of different companies. I'm wow, I've never heard of this product before. This is very cool. I mean, I heard about Zone Raiders through LVO 2 years ago. I heard about, I don't think I had not seen Pro Acryl, paints from, Monument /Creature Caster until 2 years ago, I think think it was also at LVO. Or maybe it was Nova. I forget which one, but yeah. Today must be the day of finding things. I just found my sisters a Sigmar. They've been lost for a year, says Roland. Well, that's good to hear. There you go. Joshua says, I highly recommend using transfers to use microset, microsol. Yes, I've been hearing that. I think I have a bottle of both somewhere in the basement, but we'll see. Dice Dealer says that Vegas is closed until 4:30, or, well, April 30th. That's a bummer. I didn't know. I was just there at the end of January. Great Primer says Dungeons and Donuts do the best gourmet donuts that are themed to games and movie IPs. Delicious and meta. I've never heard of them, but that sounds interesting. Ariel says, hi guys, the Shelter and Hobby has taught me to make the most of what I have. I buy paints on a need to basis, and now I can't go to my FLGS to get what I want. I have to do with what I have. That totally makes sense. Matthew Sears says that me painting and doing videos gets in the way of him and I playing Astroneer on the PlayStation 4. That is partially true. That's true. Moderator Matt and I from time to time have been playing Astroneer, which is a very kind of chill, you're a little cartoon astronaut dude walking around a planet doing stuff, whatever. There's no monsters. Every once in a while a plant might fart on you. That's about it. The problem is we can't play multiplayer per se, we've found, because the multiplayer code in that game is really screwed up. So like, if he joins my game or if I join his game, whoever is not the host, after about 3 to 5 minutes, it just starts to lag really terribly. So what we've been doing instead is just basically both playing our own single player games of Astroneer and then chatting via voice chat thingy on PlayStation. That's basically about... That's pretty much that, and a little bit of GTA 5 during after lunch on Friday is about the only video game stuff I've been doing lately. G Daddy Cliff says, I just started using some Pro Acryl. It's nice. I do like the Pro Acryl line quite a bit. I'm looking forward to using the transparent colors. I picked those up at LVO, and after watching that video, like I said, I think it was last night actually, where I was watching Kenny Boucher do. He was working on, like I said, one of these types of tiles, or actually on several of these types of tiles, and he had painted it, like primed it all black, and then spritzed it all white in a bunch of different places, and then he started using the transparent brown, I think, with his airbrush, and I kind of want to see what that looks like maybe on these. J Solo Arts just posted his Modoc to Shelter and Hobby. Nice. All right, good to hear. Yeah, good old Modoc, the giant head. Or whatever. I don't like I said, I don't generally read the comics, like not the Marvel comics too much. I was a kind of I've liked the Batman, like the Dark Knight stuff from Frank Miller back before Frank Miller went a little crazy. And like I said, I also some of the Frank Miller stuff for Daredevil / Elektra Assassin. I read that stuff back in the day, and I've always been a big Hellboy fan. But normal, like Captain America, Iron Man, stuff like that, that's never been something I've read much. So when I see stuff like MODOK or whatever his name is, I'm always like, good Lord, he's just a giant weird head that's on a jet coming out of his ass, it looks like. Yeah. Ralph says, I am airbrushing the tops of my bottles at the moment with the color within for easier color matching. Just finished priming 347 paint bottles last night. That's a big project. That's a good use of time, probably, I think. Definitely. Let's see here. People talking about microset, microsol is a must. Adam, are you planning some battle reports for Frostgrave? Are they coming out with a second edition? They are coming out with the second edition this summer. I haven't planned any yet. I have 2 warbands painted up for Frostgrave, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of would like to, but we'll see how it goes. Gray Primer says, using gloss varnish will protect your paint from decal softener. You can apply matte varnish afterwards if you need to restore a matte finish once the decal is on. Yeah, I've always found, like, even not using microset, microsol, I always start with, like, this is where the decal is going to go, and the very first thing I do is put down a gloss coat and let that dry. And the reason for that, from what I've always been told, and it makes sense, is because it is then easier for the the decal to adhere to a shiny surface than a matte surface. Also, like if you have a matte surface and you put a decal over it, and then you've got water in there and all that stuff, and everything looks perfect, when the water all actually finally dries that is underneath the transfer, you will now see how the transfer was not stuck directly to the actual surface. It's stuck to the tops of all the bumpy parts that make up the matte surface. Because a glossy surface is generally flat and shiny, whereas a matte surface is bumpy, and that's what causes it to be matte. So what happens is if you don't put down some, from what I understand, if you don't put down some sort of gloss or something, then once your transfer completely dries, I've heard it called ghosting or frosting, but basically like where the clear part is, it will get lighter. It'll turn like almost not white, but like a little bit lighter, and then it's very easy to see the edges of the transfer. So yeah, you always want to put down a gloss coat first, let that totally dry, stick your transfer to the gloss coat with the normal, water and all that kind of stuff. And then after you're done, the smartest thing, from what I've been also told, is to throw gloss coat over top again, because then that helps to also then blend out like where the edges of the actual transfer are. So you put gloss coat over the top again, let that totally dry, and then when it's time to finish your model and you spray it with whatever kind of matte varnish of your choosing, then it will then get rid of that gloss over the transfer, and it'll look good. So that's the plan. Yes, fewer air bubbles under the decal if you do it on gloss. That's basically the case. The noob painter has joined the chat. Tabletop Simulator would be perfect for Frostgrave, just saying, according to the noob painter. I kind of wanted to watch. I was mentioning this earlier, noob, how you were running a Twitch stream with you were doing Car Wars or Gaslands. I got Car Wars on the brain. But I couldn't watch it afterwards because there's a switch in the settings in Twitch, which I just realized myself. You may actually know this, but if you go into the settings in Twitch, there's a switch that you switch from off to on that then makes it so that your videos can be seen by people after the fact. Like maybe only for, I don't know, so maybe it's 24 hours, maybe it's a week, I don't know, but they don't stay forever like YouTube, but they stay for a while. Because I was going to watch that. I was also going to watch to see how when I was playing Grand Theft Auto during lunch on Friday, I was going to see how that turned out. It did crash at some point, and then that's how the stream stopped. But I wanted to see what it sounded like, what it looked like, but I couldn't because I forgot. I didn't realize that that the default is we don't save your videos, so you have to go in and do that. So if you're interested down the road, something to think about. What else have we got? Any good recommendation on printing your own transfer sheets for shoulder decals? Oy. I kind of deep dived, anyway, into that for a while because I was like, you know what I want to do? I want to make Tabletop Minions transfer sheets. And as it turns out, there's very expensive printers that you can buy that can do it. You can also go to the hobby store and buy these like packs of like paper and do it there too with like an inkjet or a laser. But they're not very good. They're not particularly good quality. If you want good quality, then you end up having to buy these very expensive printers, which are just difficult to find because it's not like a normal like paper printer. It's not made by Epson or HP. It's not something that everybody needs, so therefore it's not something you can get from like Amazon or Best Buy or whatever. They're really difficult to find, and they're made by strange brands. And so I kind of tried to go down that rabbit hole and figure out what I was going to do. Like I was willing to spend a bit of money if needs be, but man, I could not find it. It's hard. If you want custom like shoulder pad, like good transfers, that's tough. That is pretty tough. The biggest issue is that if you do go to the store, like the hobby store, and buy one of those like tester's kits that have the paper that you put in your printer, the problem is that your printer doesn't print white. So your printer prints, if you've got a full color printer, prints cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Those are the 4 colors. But it does not print white. So you can either buy the clear backing stuff, and then it's basically transparency, which is not so great in some situations, depending on what you're trying to do. Or you can buy the white backing stuff, but then you have to cut it exactly to the shape you want, because otherwise then you can't, like normal, like regular water slide transfers are printed on clears. You can cut, like, let's say you're printing, let's say it's a circle icon, the Imperial Fist, thingy, circle with the fist in black and white. You can cut around it, but not onto the artwork, and have a little bit of clear around the edges, and it'll be okay because it's clear. If you use the clear paper stuff that you get at the hobby store, then you can't print the white background in the circle that the fist is on, because you don't have white in your printer. So if you don't do that, then you have to cut exactly a perfect circle where the line is. It's a real pain, as it turns out. So, yeah. Anyway, so there you got that. Yeah, I don't know. Transfers, like getting transfers made. Like there are companies out there that make transfers now that will make you custom transfers for a price, and that's fine. But it's usually they don't just do one. They do like, well, okay, you need to do 100 sheets to start or whatever. So then that becomes very pricey as well, because I've looked into that as well. David Moffat says I need to find that Switch on Twitch. Yeah, it's a what do you call it? It's somewhere in the settings, and it's just a little toggle switch. DTM Jack says I'm still trying to figure out what Zenithal is. Zenithal is the type of priming that you do. You prime something, let's say black, to start. Like let's say it's a model. Do I have a model laying around here? Oh, I got this guy who's already painted. But so you've got this model, and you've sprayed him all black. He's all primed. And then you take either a light gray or a white primer, and you spray from above. And what that does is it basically acts as a light source coming from above, because this guy probably does not stand on a bunch of disco dance floors where you're lit from underneath. He's generally outside, so the light comes from above. And the reason you do that is because then you can start painting him in transparent colors, and it will look like you faded from like light to dark under his armpit there. And then it will look like you knew what you were doing, like with, like wet blending and all kinds of stuff like that. But all you literally did was you sprayed him all black, and then you sprayed him from above with white. So Zenithal is when you do a two-tone priming job before you start painting. Now, some people do it so it's a guide, so they can see where the shadow should break, and when they're painting in very opaque colors. When I do a black and white Zenithal, it's because I'm going to be using transparent paints over him, and I just don't want to go through and blend stuff. I want the sprays to do the blending for me, and it just works out really well. So that's what a Zenithal is. In this situation, when I was talking about on this, when Kenny was painting these, he was painting them all in black, and then once they were black and there was kind of dried down, he started hitting in areas like with white to sort of like add shading and that kind of stuff, and highlighting to the raised parts. But generally that type of priming is designed for models, and it allows you to basically make you look like you know what you're doing when you kind of don't. As far as like I've got, if you go to my YouTube channel, any second now. There we go. And I go to this so you folks can see it, like over here. These guys up here, these green Chaos Warriors, that's a Zenithal highlight. What that is I used an airbrush in that situation, but they're primed black, and then I primed them from above, spraying down with white, and then they had this kind of like white to black fade going on, and then that green that makes up their cloak, that is literally just a green wash. And then you put it over there, and it acts like a filter, meaning like a clear piece of plastic that you look through that makes everything greenish. In this situation, you paint that green transparent onto the black and white fade. It is now a green to black fade, and it looks like I went through with a brush and did fancy wet blending and kind of smoothed things out, but as it turns out, I did not. So that's pretty much what that is. And it's I use it a lot. I use it a ton, actually. Sometimes you can do it with other things. You don't have to go black and white either. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm going to use a dark, like a black base, and then blue, because I need these guys to be like mostly blue but fade into the dark parts, like underneath their arms and underneath their legs and stuff like that, where the shadows would lie. That works out pretty well too. So I'm going to fix all my stuff here real quick. Click on you. There we go. Paul Noxie says, I don't Zenithal highlight at all, as my models all stand on disco dance floors. Well, you could do an upside-down Zenithal. That would work as well. Actually, Sam did a video on my channel last year called the Anti-Zenithal, where he would basically paint the model, and then he would turn them upside down, and then spray them from below with a dark color, so that it basically added in shadow on the undersides. These were horses, guys on horseback, so he was basically shadowing underneath the horses and stuff like that. But it was another way to do it, so yeah. Definitely. Let me see here. What else? I bought acrylic inks to help with Zenithal. Yeah, acrylic inks can very frequently be a lot more opaque than you might think, so watch out for that. Acrylic inks, so if you're going to be using a white acrylic ink instead of a white primer, yes, that's a super good way to do it for Zenithal. But if you're going to use the ink to color something, then that could be a problem sometimes, because the inks can be pretty normal, like regular acrylic inks can actually be pretty opaque. But like the transparent paints from Pro Acryl are good for that. Honestly, contrast paints are great. Like if you for this particular thing, so are Secret Weapon washes. Like lately, I've been finding myself using Secret Weapon washes, contrast paints, and well, that's basically about it right now. For like, I've black and white Zenithal something, and now I want to start painting and blocking out the colors, and I just either use the Zenithal or the contrast colors depending on the color, or the Secret Weapon washes. Secret Weapon washes are spectacular for that type of thing. Lemur Crazy says contrast over Zenithal works well. Yes, not all of them, because some of them are very dark. Some of the darkest browns, like Wildwood, they're so dark. What's the other one? Ultramarine Blue, that one's really dark. So is Black Templar. I mean, they've got their great uses for other situations. Well, I'm still not a big fan of the Ultramarine Blue. I think that it's broken. Maybe I got a bad bottle. I don't know. But I use the Black Templar color and the Wildwood color in a lot of situations because they work out real well. Scott says, Adam, have you seen the minis for Oathmark? They look really good, and the price you get 30 minis in a box. Somewhere in my basement, I have a box of Oathmark goblins that I bought online. I don't know where they are, but yeah, they were a pretty good price, a good price point for how many models you got. Kind of like the plastics that they do for Frostgrave as well. It's got, again, you get a lot of decent models for a decent price. Plastic too. You can achieve the Zenithal effect by dry brushing if you don't have an airbrush. Vince Ventrella has done several videos on it. Check him out. That's very true too. If you, it takes you a bit longer maybe, but if you do use like a big makeup brush, you can get a really nice Zenithal effect without an airbrush. I also did a video years ago about rattle can tricks, which was basically Zenithal with rattle cans, which you can also do. So there's that. Let's see here. So I guess that's what the contrast paints are all about. I mean, that's not like I think it makes them look better if you just use the base color that, one of the base prime colors that they made for the contrast colors, either Wraithbone or Grey Seer. If you just spray them that color flat and then put on normal regular contrast paints, I just don't think the models look that great. They look okay, but if you were to go with, like, let's say a dark brown as a base color, let that dry 10 minutes or whatever, then take the Wraithbone, which is like a super light ivory, and then dust it from above, so you get this nice kind of like fade from like white on top of the head and like darker brown underneath the chin, because the paint is coming from the lighter color paint is coming from above, so it's not getting underneath the chin and underneath the arms. If you were to do that and then start going over with some of your contrast paints, I think it makes things look a lot sharper. Like, it brings out the details more because there's more contrast between the highlights where the light paint hits and the lowlights, the shadows underneath where the dark paint hit. You know what I mean? Like, it's very important when you're doing a Zenithal that you want to spray the model not just with the black, not just from above, but all over. Like a model like this, If I was doing it outside the driveway, spraying my black spray paint, okay, cool, done. And then let him sit for maybe 10 minutes and then knock him over onto his back and then spray him up this way, okay? So you get the paint up underneath and then let him sit for 10 minutes, then flip him over onto his tummy and then spray up this way because you need to get the black everywhere, up underneath, all over the place. And then once that's all dry, then you bring out your lighter color, whatever it might be, put him back right side up again, and then spray from above. Not straight down, maybe from like a 45-degree angle. Sorry, you can't see it from, I'm way up here. You're like, but like from like a 45-degree angle and kind of spritz around. You're basically trying to catch him from all the different angles. Generally, you want to try to get a little bit more light on the face because the face should be a draw. It should be a visual, something you're pulled into. But this guy's got a big kind of hunchback, so you're going to get a bunch of paint on that's going to be lighter as well up there, and that's fine. Depends on the model in some situations, but that's the easy, quick, and simple way to do zenithal. And then once that's all dry, then you go in there, and if you want to start using your contrast paints, they work really well, actually, in those situations. Rotten Reason says, okay, that blue thing behind you looks like a Mr. Meeseeks. It's not. It's my wife's cello case, but his name is Nick Raimondo. But he's been modified. He's got some googly eyes. Sent to us from Australia with love from Mr. VJ Morph. He is a unofficial mascot of the show. Sometimes he's out on patrol, and by out on patrol, I mean my wife has some sort of gig, specifically on Sunday mornings, like playing someplace, but not in a while, obviously, so he's been back there as a silent watcher. He's the hero we need, but not the one we deserve. Frankie D. Bailey says, ultramarine blue contrast doesn't work unless you throw 2 metal mixing balls into it and shake the bejesus out of it for about 15 minutes to get the pigment off the bottom. Like, I got the pigment off the bottom. That's the other thing that's super important to know about contrast paints. When you look at a contrast paint, there's almost always like a ring around the bottom of like extra stuff, and you have to get that stuff shook up enough to that disappears. Otherwise, the contrast like thing that makes contrast paints work doesn't work. I don't know why, but that stuff has to kind of get busted up. I have this, it's frankly overpowered machine that you plug into the wall and then you put like a paint pot on it and you press down and it shakes the hell out of it. And I've used that. But still, I just don't like the color is fine. I'm not against the color. It just doesn't do the contrast thing like most of the other paints do. Like, honestly, Black Templar doesn't particularly do the contrast thing either. Like, it doesn't pull away from the highlights as much as some of the other colors do. But with Black Templar, when I'm using it, I just want like a nice black paint that's very fluid and very quick and very easy one coat. So I don't mind it as much with Black Templar, but the blue, just, I don't know. I'll have to be, I don't know, I'll have to work on it a little bit more, but we'll see how it goes. So far, that ultramarine blue is my least favorite color, but there's been a bunch of other colors that I've been using a lot in contrasts lately. I mean, I started using them all. I got the contrast paints in, it was during TMX of 2019, so it was like June 8th or something like that. And, yeah, and so I used them here and there, like in getting into July, because I was traveling like the rest of June. Into July, I started using them here and there, but I've been using them a lot over the last couple of months. Everybody made a contrast video, and I didn't make a contrast video because I didn't have the time and I hadn't used them, and I didn't feel it was, for me, it was right because I had barely been able to use them. I'm thinking about making a contrast video soon, so I will look into that. I kicked around the idea about doing it as a like a 1-year anniversary kind of a thing of like contrast stuff coming out to see what I think. Don't steal my idea. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. They do work. There's a lot of them that I really, really enjoy now. So, but there are some that I'm like, I don't use this as much. But there's a bunch of them that I use all the time now. So that's what I would talk about, is which ones I liked and which ones I don't. All right. We're just about done here. What else? I got a Vortex from my lab, and wow, does that work amazing for mixing paints. That does sound fun. Mine's called not a Tornado. I forget what it's called. I bought it off of eBay, I think, and it was like this guy, he buys these things and like used, and then completely fixes all the electronics and then repaints them and repackages them and then sells them and stuff. And they're I can't think of what it's called. It's not a Vornado. That's something else altogether. But they're very cool. Contrast Flesh Terror Red is the best red of all reds. I like the Blood Angel one just a touch better. I feel like as if the Flesh Terror one's just got a little bit more pink in it than I like. But I could be getting them mixed up in my head. But I know that the Blood Angel one I like quite a bit too. Space Wolves Gray is shockingly bad, according to Dan Randon. Yeah, it's not one of the better ones, that's for sure. I agree. Patrick says your Stormtrooper video was a good contrast paint vid. Yeah, that's true. Those contrast paints, those two that I used in that Stormtrooper video, those two paints work perfectly for Stormtroopers. I think they work really great. All right, well, it is 11 a.m. in my neck of the woods, and so I want to thank you folks for coming and hanging out. It's been good to see you, not actually, but see the chat. You know what I mean. And I hope that this video has helped to, get you moving on some stuff, get you thinking about other things, whatever. It's again, we're kind of stuck inside, so definitely do your hashtag shelterinhobby. Go out onto Instagram, post some things. Start a new account if you don't have one, or if you want to keep your account separate from your personal account, start a separate account. Become a content creator. Put your videos out there if you want to. They're going to be real short. You could do that. But show the stuff that you're working on while you're stuck indoors, and have a good time with that. So I think that's about it. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks. And if everything goes well, this time next week, there will be a new battle report. It'll be Death Guard versus Sisters of Battle. And we'll see how that works out. All right. Well, thanks again, and thanks for watching.